Hello readers by eyes and by ears, this is Mari Chan and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with another reading of Ballad of Sword and Wine, Volume 4, also known as Tang Jiu by Tang Jiu Qing. I hope you all enjoy today's reading. Let's go ahead and get started, and be sure to stay at the end after the discussion because I do have a few announcements to make. Chapter 129. Graveyard of Dreams. Wu Ziyu's guard was riding out of the camp when he saw the men from the Imperial Army charging in the opposite direction like ravenous beasts. This company was more excited than afraid. They had been restricted over and over back in Chudu and Zhongbo. To date, they had never fought a battle where they could truly let loose. When they had clashed with the 8th Great Battalions under Han Jin, their opponent had collapsed under the first press like soft dough. Now that they had finally come face to face with the Biansha horsemen, the Imperial Army thrummed with frenzied energy as they drew their blades and charged into the fray. The Liaoying tribe had arrived with limited numbers, relying on the catapults to take border camp by surprise. Victory had been within their grasp when they were caught off guard by these troops that appeared out of thin air. The Imperial Army had always been stationed in Chudu. When they fought, it was in the streets and alleyways of the city. While their blades were not as long as those of the Libe armored cavalry, they wielded them artfully. They had been an incomplete army before Xiao Chuye took over as supreme commander, and in Chudu, their main forces had long been nicknamed the Moochers with military designations, for they were best at mucking about and loafing on the job. All told, they were a slippery group, not an organized wall like the Libe armored cavalry. As long as they could skewer the enemies with their blades, they were not above striking below the belt. Now the Biansha soldiers had become the target of their surprise attack. Wu Ziyu's guard turned back to cut off the Liaoying tribe's retreat. The Biansha men at the periphery quickly withdrew with their catapults, but their soldiers who were still inside border camp were trapped. They had no choice but to fight to the death with the Imperial Army. By the time Wu Ziyu was able to stand, the fire had died down. Blade in hand, Chun Yang checked the corpses and reported to Xiao Chuye, "Master, these men are indeed from the Liaoying tribe." The catapults are heavy equipment. They're difficult to move. If they want to take those with them when they flee, they won't be able to build up much speed." Xiao Chuye turned to Tan Taihu. "Lao Hu, take the cavalry and give chase." Wu Ziyu was quick to speak up. "My horse can still run. Take mine, brother." Tan Taihu thanked him and swung up onto the horse. Gu Jin turned his own mount around. "Follow me, Lao Hu. We'll go after them together." By the time they set off on their pursuit, half of border camp had been razed by the fire. Xiao Chuye surveyed the horses' stables and granary, while Wu Ziyu followed close behind and called out, "Argongzi." Although the main duty of border camp is patrols, it's also where reserve supplies are stored. This place is a good distance from the border. There's 3rd Sand Camp to the east acting as a shield, with sentry posts and checkpoints along the way. Xiao Chuye squinted against the glare of the sun. He looked at Wu Ziyu again. "You let them get behind you. Where are your patrols?" Wu Ziyu recognized Xiao Chuye. In his early years, when he had been selected alongside Zhao Hui and Chen Yang to join Xiao Jiming's personal guards in the prince's residence, he had seen the second young master as a boy. But that child and the Xiao Chuye standing before him now were like two different people. His excessively tall stature meant he was always looking down on one from above, and being regarded this way made Wu Ziyu feel suddenly small. He averted his gaze. "The patrol squadron that went out last night didn't return. Yet as the commanding general, you didn't sense anything amiss even at noon?" Xiao Chuye looked as if he was just engaging in idle chatter. He had an oppressive presence, but his attitude was mild. 1st Sand Camp is where the fighting is, while border camp supplies 3rd Sand Camp and the rest. Even a slight disturbance here will affect the battle at the front lines. You certainly seem laid back." Wu Ziyu knew exactly what he was implying. Xiao Chuye had never held a post in Li Bei's military. His only military rank at the moment was that of the Imperial Army's supreme commander, one no longer acknowledged by Chudu. He was in no position to reprimand Wu Ziyu, yet the more placid his tone, the more Wu Ziyu grew hot with shame. News of the second young master's return had been circulating in Li Bei for over 2 months. Even the common soldiers knew, and each of the high-ranking officers had their own thoughts about it. Of the officers currently serving in the Li Bei Armored Cavalry, other than the few veterans left over from Xiao Fengshu's era, all the rest had been promoted by Xiao Jiming himself. But now Xiao Jiming was wounded, and no one knew when he would return to his command. Would the second young master take Xiao Jiming's place upon his return? Rumors swirled through the camps. But whether these officers were ready to throw in their lot with Xiao Chuye or were determined to discount him, all were waiting for Xiao Chuye to return and show his mettle. While 6 years was not a long time, nor was it a short one. There were all kinds of strange tales about the second young master. Wu Ziyu was observing him as well. "Our men here returned from First Sand Camp only yesterday. Our main task is planning and coordinating the transportation of equipment and provisions for the battlefield." Wu Ziyu paused for a moment. "The original garrison troops stationed at Border Camp have been rotated over to First Sand Camp, so none of our regular forces are stationed here for the time being. We're situated behind Third Sand Camp. I really didn't expect." He gradually trailed off. The disquieting atmosphere was getting to him. He felt that silent pressure more viscerally than the blazing sun. He shot a glance at Xiao Chuye. His throat bobbed, but he didn't dare continue speaking. Meng cocked his head and stared at Wu Ziyu. His beak, like an iron hook, had yet to be wiped clean. The nape of Xiao Chuye's neck was exposed to the scorching sun. He lifted his free hand to cover it and raised his head slightly. He was still looking at the horse stables. "But aren't you the Li Bei Armored Cavalry?" Wu Ziyu stood there in silence. Xiao Chuye's left arm was steady. The combined weight of Meng and the armed guard was nothing to him. He didn't let Meng rest for long. Once Chunyang finished a head count of the bodies, Xiao Chuye released Meng into the air once again. Chunyang looked up, following Meng's flight. "Master, should we get a squadron to follow?" Considering the Biansha soldiers brought catapults for a sneak attack, it should have been tough for them to avoid Third Sand Camp's patrol. If they made it all the way here undetected, Third Sand Camp has already fallen. Xiao Chuye wasn't smiling now. "My father allowed the supply squadron to retreat to Border Camp, so it's likely he still doesn't know Third Sand Camp is in enemy hands. I'll send Meng over to the First Sand Camp to deliver the news. We'll rest for the night and head for Third Sand Camp in the morning." "Argongza, you have no cavalry or supplies," Wu Ziyu blurted. "If you continue east, you'll come face to face with the Biansha soldiers. Seeing as they were able to take down Third Sand Camp without so much as a peep, the men there are probably from the Hanma tribe, adept in powerful offense. It's safer to wait for reinforcements from Zhao Hui's Liuyang camps. I'll send someone to deliver the message to the air right away. He'll definitely send Zhao Hui over. If you had somehow sent the message to the Liuyang camps yesterday right after you arrived, there might still be a chance of reinforcements reaching us before sunset tomorrow. If you send the message now, it'll take a day and a night to reach the Northeast Provisions Trail even at top speed. Zhao Hui will need another day and night to get to the Liuyang camps from home. By the time he arrives, Border Camp will be gone." Xiao Chuye pointed to the ruins of the watchtower. "Rebuild the watchtower. Don't set it up to watch the east. Shift it to the southeast corner. Do a count of the grain and battle steeds, and have the craftsmen prioritize repairs of the camp's defensive walls that were hit by the catapults. If you're worried about the Biansha soldiers returning, you should move the grain and horses to the Northeast Provisions Trail now," Wu Ziyu said, catching up with Xiao Chuye. "There's simply no time to rebuild Border Camp. Third Sand Camp is only a few miles away from this place. Riders from the Hanma tribe will be here within a day." Xiao Chuye climbed up the railing and stepped down on the other side. He turned and held a hand up, motioning for Wu Ziyu not to follow him, and asked lightly, "Do you mean that?" Wu Ziyu didn't understand what Xiao Chuye was getting at. He continued, rapid fire. "The only thing to do now is to abandon border camp and try to preserve what supplies we can—" Xiao Chuye casually backed away from him. "And you don't feel even the tiniest urge to go after them?" By now, the sun had begun its downward tilt. Wu Ziyu stood on one side of the ruined railing, baffled by Xiao Chuye's gaze on him. The burns on his back stung in the scorching sunlight. Frowning, he watched as Xiao Chuye turned away. He couldn't help shouting with all his might, "We can't fight them, Argongza. I told you, we're just the supply squadron." Without turning, Xiao Chuye waved a hand at Wu Ziyu. His meaning was clear. Wu Ziyu could shut up now. Xiao Chuye stood before the collapsed granary looking out at the horizon, his expression cold and detached, and his lips tightly compressed. He didn't move for a long time. In his tent, Xiao Fangshu sprawled confidently in his seat and threw his head back to swallow the last mouthful of milk tea. The salted milk tea, brewed with coarse leaves, had gone cold after being set aside. The clotted cream coated his mouth, the milky aroma lingering in his nose. His shoulders were bare, allowing the medic to apply medicine. "Amur is a worthy opponent." Xiao Fangshu shifted his bandaged shoulder. "I've been observing the Hanma tribe for more than 10 years, but even I didn't expect their offensive power to be so strong. When people grow old, their reactions slow. I'm no longer the soldier I once was. Li Bei's advantages are conspicuous, and its disadvantages are likewise clear to see." Zuo Tianqiu grabbed a handful of sand and watched the grain trickle through his fingers. "Amur changed his attack strategy to face you. He never launched such a sudden assault when he fought Jiming in the past. Jiming's skills lie in strategy. The camp he set up along the boundary line are all interlocked. When our cavalry rides out to face the enemy, they wear invisible chains held by Xiao Jiming himself. When the situation changes, Jiming can pull that chain and haul those forces back in a heartbeat to avoid heavy losses. Now that Jiming has retreated and you're back in command, news is being passed much more slowly, and your style is so different from Jiming's. The vanguard is afraid to go all out when they charge, and the reserve troops' previous rhythm is also disrupted. How could Amur let this opportunity pass by?" Xiao Fangshu rose to get dressed. Scars covered the powerful muscles on his back. He called himself old, but his intimidating physique was sturdier now than it had been in his youth. He slipped into his robe and began to fasten his armor, every step meticulous. If Great Zhou were still at its peak, Jiming would be the best commander for the Li Bei armored cavalry. He has performed extraordinarily well, and is the best candidate to carry Li Bei forward. Xiao Fangshu strapped on his blade and continued stoically. "But Great Zhou is showing signs of collapse. Remaining the wall of the empire is no longer a suitable strategy for the Li Bei armored cavalry. Amur is the great Esuhuri, the hero the heavens bestowed upon Biansha. He travels through the various tribes, hoping to create a new world under his rule. Jiming's conservative strategy is giving our enemy time to grow. Tianqiu, there's something you and I both need to recognize. Biansha is no longer a group of scattered little tribes relying on looting and plundering to survive. They are streams that have converged under Amur's leadership to become a boundless sea. Has it occurred to you that by the time Amur unifies all 12 tribes, Biansha will be a behemoth capable of devouring Great Zhou? If we're to strike, it must be now. I am the spear of Li Bei, and Jiming is its shield. When the Li Bei armored cavalry shed part of its weight, it also fell into the trap of complacency. An armored cavalry that has lost its thirst for victory is akin to a wolf that no longer feasts on meat. Sooner or later, it will be conquered and replaced." Expressionless, Xiao Fangshu continued. "Jiming's defeat is not a bad thing for him or for the cavalry. I threw him into the military when he was just a teenager, but not because I hoped he'd maintain some so-called unfailing glory. There are no legends on the battlefield. I, too, will fail. The current Libe armored cavalry needs to understand sooner rather than later that what we're after is not eternal triumph, but simply to win. Even if we lose, we will climb swiftly back to our feet. As long as we have our limbs, we can still fight. Both Jiming and I accomplished what we needed to. Now, it's time for Libe to feel hunger. Xiao Fengshu paused. His gaze was deep. The Libe armored cavalry is an urge of a new commander. This person must be unlike the rest of us. Our polar opposite, even. He must tear off the layer of scholarly elegance that Jiming has established. He must be avaricious and savage. He has to make the Libe armored cavalry ravenous. He must be the wolf that leads the hunt. Sir. Wow. Chapter 130. Jade Earring. While border camp was under attack, Shan Zichuan was taking a nap. Qiao Tianya sat under the eaves plucking at his chin, while Ding Tao and Li Xiong stood around the large copper basin and played with the fish. Is it the scene from the photo? Hold on. Wait, they're playing with frogs. Okay, sorry y'all. I got excited. I love when I can pinpoint, the cover or the image on the inside. Okay, continue. All was quiet inside the room, where sunlight spilled over half of Shan Zichuan's shoulders. He had just settled the details of registration for the yellow register with Zhou Gui and the others the night before, and in the morning, they had begun an inventory of Zizhou's reserve grain. Autumn was around the corner. If they wanted to do business with Chazhou, now was the best time. He had worked until the afternoon, when he took the opportunity to doze off for a moment at his desk. Sometime later, he woke up. Shan Zichuan leaned back against the chair and pinched the spot between his brows. After taking a moment to gather himself, he called for Qiao Tianya. The bandits we released half a month ago have returned to Mount Luo by now. Has there been any news of Lei Jingjie? Shan Zichuan took up his brush and continued writing where he had left off. Even if he makes a move, the news would take days to reach us. Qiao Tianya picked a chair and took a seat. The Marquis was thorough in his arrangements. When Lei Jingjie returns to Mount Luo, there will be a target painted on his back. Just resolving his own affairs will take him a month at least. Shan Zichuan said nothing and continued writing. Finding him somewhat distracted, Qiao Tianya added, Master only slept 4 hours last night, and after dinner tonight, you still have more discussions to attend at the Zhou Manor. There's no harm in resting now while you can. I'll sleep after I come back, Shan Zichuan replied. Is Fei Xiong still idling around? Give him something to do, since that's what he wants. Qiao Tianya rubbed his fingers together. I've been thinking about this recently as well. You've left him out in the cold for more than a month. If this goes on, he may begin to resent you. He's sharp. He knows Zi'an doesn't want him, so he wishes to remain in Suzhou. Zhou Gui and Kong Ling are uneasy about his background in the embroidered uniform guard and dare not use him. So, his only hope is to follow Shifu around, hoping to get a job from me that way. Shan Zichuan set down the brush and waited for the ink to dry. Now that Gu Jin has returned to Libe, we are indeed short on scouts. When Qiao Tianya and the others had arrived in Suzhou, the men from the embroidered uniform guard who had followed them out of Chidu also arrived one after another. Yet even together, there were only 100 or so men, half of whom were Fei Xiong's old subordinates. Shan Zichuan had set Fei Xiong aside because he was clear Fei Xiong didn't wish to work under him. His sights were set squarely on Xiao Chuye. Unfortunately, Xiao Chuye wouldn't have him, so Fei Xiong had settled for the next best option and remained beside Ji Gang, obeying his every command. Fei Xiong was not involved in any of Shan Zichuan's ongoing affairs in Suzhou, yet he often placed himself in Shan Zichuan's line of sight. His intentions were patently obvious. Fei Xiong had a discerning eye. He had observed Shan Zichuan's every move and knew he lacked manpower. Even if Shan Zichuan left him out in the cold for a while, he would eventually have put him to use. Qiao Tianya leaned forward across the table. What do you want him to investigate? "Two things," Shan Zichuan answered. "First, I want him to keep an ongoing record of the price of tea and rice in the various prefectures of Zhongbua and in Huaizhou up north. We'll want Suzhou's asking price to fall somewhere in between. If we're to avoid taking a loss, we have to be intimately acquainted with the prices in these places. The embroidered uniform guard had the task back in Chengdu. He can assign the right men to carry out this task. Second, I want him to get to the bottom of Lei Changming and Lei Jingzhe's relationship with the Yan clan of Hezhou, especially Lei Changming. I want to know everything." Qiao Tianya's brows rose slightly. Lei Changming was merely a human shield Lei Jingzhe set up for himself to hide behind. Why investigate him instead of Lei Jingzhe? Shan Zichuan paused. "As I was drifting off earlier, I recalled the way Lei Changming looked before he died. There was something strange about him. The custom of wearing earrings is prevalent among the noble clans in Chengdu and the 8 surrounding cities. Li Xiong is an orphan Lei Jingzhe raised. The boy rarely socializes with people from the prominent clans. He'd only seen it once. It's no surprise my earring left an impression on him. But as the bandit chief of Mount Luo, Lei Changming interacted with prefects and garrison troop commanders in Dunzhou and Duanzhou and had dealings with Yan Hezhu, the youngest son of the prestigious merchant clan of Hezhou. He should have come across men wearing earrings countless times. Yet, before he died, he was fixated on my jade earring." A small crease appeared between Shan Zichuan's brows. He could vividly recall Lei Changming's expression in his final moments. Had Li Xiong not mentioned the earring, Shan Zichuan wouldn't have thought any more of it. But through that jade earring, Lei Changming's deranged and delirious eyes had clearly been seeing someone else. Under most circumstances, this would have been a trivial detail, to be dismissed without a second thought. Shan Zichuan's jade earring was nothing exceptional, just a scrap of stone Xiao Zhiye had polished himself while on the run. Compared to the box of earrings he gifted Shan Zichuan back in Chengdu, this stone was neither rare nor valuable. All the noble clans considered it good luck to have their precious children wear earrings of jade pearls. Only their roundness and smoothness gave away the profound sentiment of the giver. But this memory pricked at the back of Shan Zichuan's mind. He intuitively felt there was something here that he ought to investigate further, that there were still some secrets regarding this uncle and nephew pair to which Zhou Gui and Kong Ling were not privy. Li Xiong sat by the copper basin outside, playing cat's cradle with a length of red string, but his hands were clumsy and the string tangled his fingers. Beside him, Ding Tao was trying to catch the fish, splashing water on Li Xiong in the process. All of a sudden, Li Xiong snapped the string in anger, threw the pieces at Ding Tao, and scowled. "I'm going to look for my dage." Ding Tao, his sleeves still rolled up, coaxed him. "Come on, what's so good about your dage? Why not take Qiao Yueye and me as your older brothers and serve our young master? Our young master gives out sweets every month, and he never withholds our salaries." "I don't want money." Li Xiong surged to his feet. "I want my dage." Ding Tao glanced toward the main room. Through the half-raised bamboo blinds, he could see that Qiao Tianya was still speaking to Shan Zichuan. He rolled down his wet sleeves and suggested, "Come with me. I'll take you to have some meat." "I'm not eating," Li Xiong snapped, suddenly agitated. He scratched his cheek and demanded, "Why don't you people let me go? I want to leave the city. I want to go back to Mount Luo." As far as Ding Tao was concerned, Li Xiong was a brat who couldn't be reasoned with, but he was also a brat Ding Tao couldn't beat in a fight. Seeing that Li Xiong was about to throw another tantrum, Ding Tao got an idea. "You miss your dage so much. He must really be strong, huh?" "My dage is the #1 hero of Mount Luo. Of course he's strong." Ding Tao clapped his hands together. "So what if he's a hero on Mount Luo? Is he as strong as my master and my young master? I don't think of him as a hero." Sure enough, Li Xiong grew furious. He glared at Ding Tao. "Your master and young master aren't strong at all. That one in there is so skinny, my dago could kill him with one punch." Ding Tao spat inwardly. His pride pricked, but still tried his best to put on a cheerful act. "Oh, then that's pretty strong. Your daca is Lei Jingja, right? His uncle is Lei Changming. I know all about it. Already somewhat envious of Ding Tao, Li Xiong was certainly not willing to lose out to him here. Eager to prove that Lei Jingja was the most formidable, he rushed to say, Lei Changming is strong too. He can lift the little ones upside down by the ankle, but my daga is even stronger than Lei Changming. Seeing that he had taken the bait, Ding Tao played along. Oh, what kind of martial arts move is lifting the little ones upside down? Li Xiong had blurted it without thinking, but now that Ding Tao was asking, he strained to recall everything he knew about Lei Changming. Memories flashed through his mind. The little ones are children. He lifted them and held them upside down. Lei Changming loved doing things like that. He suddenly recalled something more and added, Oh, I remember. The earring. Round white earrings. The kid Lei Changming lifted upside down wore one too. That's concerning. Shen Zichuan had planned to head out after his meal. As he changed his outer robe, he could hear Ding Tao and Li Xiong running around the courtyard, yelling and screaming. The maidservant bowed her way out and was about to instruct them not to make a din when Shen Zichuan said, It's fine. Let them play. Qiao Tianya was setting his tea on a table on the veranda when he saw the chaos. Fearing the little rascals would crash into it while they were playing, he took it back to his own room. When it was time to go, Ding Tao followed Shen Zichuan out of the courtyard, looking as if he wished to speak. But perhaps seeing it was already late, the boy clung to the moon gate, swallowed back his words, and said simply, If it gets dark, I'll go wait for you with the lantern. Shen Zichuan beckoned Ding Tao over. After your meal later, you two head over to Grandpa Ji's courtyard. He wants to teach both of you the 24 stances of the Ji clan. I'll be back before midnight. Ding Tao nodded and saw Shen Zichuan to the gates, feeling a little loath to part with him. He had heard a host of stories in the afternoon, but he didn't know how many of them were real and how many made up by Li Xiong. Night was falling, and he was beginning to be afraid. As soon as Shen Zichuan left, he brought Li Xiong over to look for Jigang. Many of the guards and the men of the embroidered uniform guard also lived in this courtyard. Surely he had nothing to fear with so many others around. When Shen Zichuan arrived at the Zhou Manor, the study was brightly lit, and several of Zhou Gui's advisors were already seated within. The lingering heat of the day warmed the summer evening, and the windows on all three sides of the study were thrown open. Still, with all the incense lit to repel mosquitoes, the room felt stuffy when crowded. Kong Ling, concerned Shen Zichuan would be uncomfortable, told the servants to keep the study door open as well, to give the excess smoke another place to go. This has the records of all the grain we counted today. Vice Commander, please look it over. Zhou Gui presented the book to Shen Zichuan and said from his seat, The autumn harvest is right around the corner. The way we see it, this is the most appropriate time to discuss business with Chazhou. Kong Ling explained. In past years, the traveling merchants from Hezhou and Jueshi passed through Zhongbo in the autumn to do business at the trade market between Libei and the Huiyan tribe. But the war is intense this year. The merchants will most likely head for Chazhou instead to make up for this gap in their business. Kong Ling lifted the hem of his robe and sat down. If we arrive after them, then no matter how cheap we sell the grain, Chazhou won't have the money to buy. We should act as soon as possible. You're right. Shen Zichuan cast a thoughtful eye over the accounts. This is our most pressing task at the moment. If it goes smoothly, Suzhou will have a much easier time next year. This is Suzhou's first time proposing such a trade agreement, so the merchants from Jueshi and Hezhou wouldn't anticipate it. But when our men arrive in Chazhou, the merchants will no doubt hear whispers. I don't imagine they'll be happy about us cutting in on their livelihood. That's the hard part, Zhou Gui agreed. Leaving aside the question of whether the negotiations with Chazhou's prefect and the bandits go smoothly, we'll have to rack our brains to guard against any others who may want to take advantage of us. Our Suzhou garrison troops have been established for less than a month. The military drill grounds are unfinished, and the soldiers are yet untrained. If others with designs on the grain attempt to take it by force, we'll be no match for them. Shen Zichuan had been waiting days for Zhou Gui to say just these words. He shut the book and tapped lightly on it with his finger. Cizhou lacks a commanding general. Neither you nor I are experts at training soldiers. The Imperial Army left some men and horses behind to watch over the Beiyuan hunting grounds. If your excellency is willing, why not let them train the garrison troops? We have to come to an agreement with Chazhou before we transport any grain. Have you decided who will negotiate on Cizhou's behalf? I'll have Qiao Tianya and the embroidered uniform guard escort him for protection. Zhou Gui glanced at Kong Ling. I can't leave Cizhou, so I'll send Chengfeng, along with some clerks who are good with numbers. If the vice commander is willing to assign some men for protection, that would be for the best. Zhou Gui might not understand the undercurrents beneath Shen Zichuan's words, but Kong Ling took his meaning perfectly well. He composed himself and said, I must agree. I'm a greenhorn when it comes to such negotiations, and apprehensive lest I come up against any particularly formidable businessman. I'd like to ask if the vice commander has any ingenious stratagem he might share with me for the journey. Shen Zichuan smiled. You're much too modest, Mr. Chengfeng. What ingenious stratagem could I have? But, if it's all right, I'd like to accompany you on this trip. How would Zhou Gui dare send Shen Zichuan off into the tiger's den? Xiao Chiyeh's "I'll make sure to arrive within a day" still echoed in his ears. He hastened to interject. The vice commander is... But Kong Ling was already bowing and expressing his gratitude. I would feel considerably more reassured having the vice commander with me. This man certainly knows how it's done. Shen Zichuan smiled amiably at Kong Ling. Truly too clever. Chapter 131. A Spider's Web. It was already the end of the 6th month, so they scheduled their departure for the start of the 7th. After Shen Zichuan left, the other advisors withdrew for the night as well. As soon as they were alone, Zhou Gui turned to Kong Ling. Why did you insist on letting the vice commander come with you? It's chaos in Chazhou. If anything happens to the vice commander, what would we tell the Marquis? I was thinking, you could disguise yourselves as merchants along the way. We still have some rapport with Luo Mu, the prefect of Chazhou. Kong Ling nodded as he drained the last of his cold tea. He swallowed and replied, We can still disguise ourselves as merchants if the vice commander comes along, and the embroidered uniform guard will be with us too. It's much safer than our initial plan. Zhou Gui pointed a finger at Kong Ling. What a moment of foolishness from a clever man. With the vice commander's appearance, how can he disguise himself as a merchant? Any sharp-eyed person along the way will see something's off at a glance. Kong Ling looked at Zhou Gui for a moment, the tea leaves still in his mouth. He felt that Zhou Gui really didn't understand. Who's the foolish one? Let me ask you. From the rebuilding of Cizhou's garrison troops to the planning of our business deals in Chazhou, which of them hasn't been a proposal from the vice commander? Cizhou has truly reaped the benefits from him, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. You think I don't see this? I do, Zhou Gui retorted. We can't afford to pay him and the Marquis back for the favor of their help at the moment. That's why we're supplying them with grain and giving them the Beiyuan hunting grounds. Doesn't this make us even, more or less? The vice commander is going to great trouble to aid Cizhou, but Cizhou is also doing its best to repay the vice commander for his kindness. Kong Ling had chewed on the tea leaves until they were bitter. Now he swallowed. We can't afford to pay it now, and it will only become harder to repay it in the future. The Marquis beat back the bandits from Mount Luo, giving Cizhou the crucial time it needs to rebuild. Yet, we can't even afford to supply half a year's worth of grain to the 20,000 soldiers of the Imperial Army. We've given them the Beiyuan hunting ground, yes, but you should know that it will be the Imperial Army's camp and drill ground from now on. It doesn't matter how we try to draw the line. In the eyes of outsiders, Cizhou already belongs to the Imperial Army. What's more, once our trade agreement with Chazhou is established, how will you split the profits with the vice commander? The vice commander said he'll assign Qiao Tianya to escort me. But who is Qiao Tianya? He was the judge of the embroidered uniform guard back in Chengdu, a much higher rank than yours. When we entered the capital in the past, he's someone we would have had to get out of our sedans and bow to before moving aside so he could pass. The vice commander assigned him to escort me. How could a mere commoner like me accept such a favor? And when we reached Chaozhou, who would be in charge then? Xiao Tianya or me? Yet you agreed so readily. That's why I say you mean well, but you're too naive. Zhou Gui had never served as an official in the imperial court. His first official post had been in Zhongbo. He had his teacher to thank for recognizing his talents. Zhou Gui had served as a tax circuit intendant under him. He'd been good at his job and was a well-read young man. His teacher valued his ability and betrothed his own daughter to Zhou Gui. Thus had Zhou Gui been spared much of the nastiness so common in official circles. He was later promoted to Cizhou's prefect based on his qualifications and experience. Both his career and home life had been almost entirely smooth sailing before the fall of Zhongbo. Unlike men like Liang Cuishan, who had been trampled by officials from the noble clans in Chudu, Zhou Gui had never endured that kind of hardship. He truly did not understand that kind of circuitous and convoluted jockeying for power. Stupefied at this sudden castigation, Zhou Gui said hesitantly, "It's a dilemma for me too, you know. I have to consider your safety when you're away doing business in Chaozhou. The garrison troops are recently established, and the Imperial Army has already left. The only ones who could be of any use to us at present are the embroidered uniform guards at the vice commander's side. When the vice commander first said he would remain in Cizhou, it was because we didn't yet trust the Imperial Army," said Kong Ling. "We had no such doubts by the time the Marquis left, yet the vice commander still stayed behind. To Cizhou, he is the rain that bedews all things in silence." Footnote number 3. This is from the poem Spring Rain by Du Fu, a distinguished poet of the Tang Dynasty considered a genius of the form. In Tang poetry, spring rain is seen as crucial for germination in the sowing season, working quietly, almost unnoticed. He has quietly infiltrated Cizhou with his generous favors. He probably had this all planned out before ever entering the city gates. It's too late for us to realize this now. After interacting with both men over the last few weeks, Zhou Gui felt that although Xiao Chiye was not the friendliest to talk to, he handled things efficiently and showed others the respect they deserved. He was a man who laid his cards on the table. Shen Zichuan, however, was another story. Shen Zichuan sat in the seat of honor when they met to make plans for Cizhou, yet he treated all the advisors with utmost courtesy and even deferentially addressed Kong Ling as Mr. Changfeng. He was open to discussion, giving the impression that he was a humble, unassuming person who showed respect even to those below him. Over time, Zhou Gui's wariness of him had gradually bled away. Zhou Gui got to his feet, hands still gripping his robe. For a long time, he was speechless. No matter how obtuse he might be, he understood now. Shen Zichuan had been going all out to help them because he saw Cizhou as a prize within his grasp. Dazed, he said, "Well, if the vice commander, if he's willing to restore Cizhou to its former glory, then I wouldn't mind ceding the position of prefect to him." Kong Ling looked out into the night. A gray moth, attracted by the light from the study, rushed toward the window, only to flutter right into the spiderweb concealed between the upturned eaves. After a moment of silence, he said, "Zhou Gui, it's time to dispense with the title of prefect. With Hai Liangyi's death, the moderates in Chudu are under attack by the students. There is no longer anyone who can maintain peace in Great Zhou on his own. The empire is falling apart. If the throne of Chudu is a deer, a prize for the taking, then Cizhou is a mere rabbit. Without this wolf and fox to guarantee our safety, Cizhou will be no more than prey in the eyes of the jackals in Chudu. You and I are powerless." Zhou Gui and Kong Ling had been students together in their youth. They had many years of friendship between them, yet Zhou Gui had rarely seen him so solemn. "I appreciate your efforts and your considerations here. All I ask is that the vice commander lives up to our expectations and doesn't let us down. Such a person frightens me." Kong Ling remembered the night he met with Lei Chongming in the bandits' camp. Shen Zichuan had seamlessly transformed between one moment and the next, chatting and smiling amid a forest of blades. His tone had been genuine. Even his eyes shone with sincerity. Not only had Lei Changming believed him, even Kong Lin himself had been taken in. It was after this incident that Kong Ling began to truly scrutinize this man, Shen Zichuan. He dropped his gaze and said, troubled, "I stood out too much tonight. I may have already crossed the line. I fear the vice commander will remember this. As your advisor, I shouldn't have shown off before him. I must be more careful in the future." As Zhou Gui and Kong Ling discussed him in the study, Shen Zichuan returned to his residence. Assuming Ji Gang had already gone to bed, Shen Zichuan didn't send anyone over to disturb him, but returned to his own rooms. As he walked along the veranda, he passed Fei Sheng on night duty in the courtyard, keeping watch with his men. Only after Shen Zichuan went inside did Fei Sheng relax a little. From where he stood under the tree, Qiao Tianya shared some of his dwindling supply of tobacco with Fei Sheng. When he saw the light in the main room go out after some time, Qiao Tianya instructed the guards to put out the lanterns in the courtyard as well. "It's hard for Master to fall asleep without the Marquis here," Qiao Tianya said in a hushed tone. "And his sleep is fitful. If you hear any noise inside later tonight, don't let anyone enter and disturb him." It took only a moment for Fei Xiang to realize why. He lowered the pipe and puffed smoke into the night. "Understood. The Chasher sinkhole was a nightmare. Thanks." Qiao Tianya did not light his pipe. He braced an arm on the tree trunk and listened to the croaks of the frogs in the pond. "You've been idle here a long time. Master finds it a pity for you to remain merely a guard. He has 2 assignments for you. I'll get Shifu to hand you the authority token tomorrow morning." Fei Sheng understood perfectly that Shen Zichuan wanted to use him, but had no intention of keeping him too close. By no means would he be able to replace Qiao Tianya. He smoked in silence for a while, then knocked the pipe a few times, and answered with a smile. "Sure. I'm looking forward to it. But give me a hint. What's the assignment?" Qiao Tianya looked toward Fei Sheng. "Record keeping. Easy peasy." "And the other one?" Fei Sheng probed. "Investigate the 2 bandits named Lei, especially Lei Changming. Find out everything there is to know about him and report it straight to Master." Qiao Tianya smiled. "This mission is a waste of your talent. Ding Tao would have been enough, but he's too young. I fear he doesn't have the experience. So it comes down to you. You're an expert in this field. How about it?" Fei Sheng smiled back and nodded. "As long as it's on the Master's instructions, there's nothing that can't be done." After a pause, Qiao Tianya went on. "As for me, there's something else I'd like to ask your help with." Fei Sheng twirled his pipe. "You and I are brothers. No need to be so courteous. What is it?" Qiao Tianya pushed himself off the tree. "When you send your men out to keep track of the price of goods, there's someone I'd like you to look for." "Ooh, is it?" This got Fei Sheng's attention. He glanced at Qiao Tianya. "Who?" "Yao Wenyu." Yeah. It was the dead of night, but the Imperial Army had yet to rest. Wu Ziyu was drinking milk tea with Chen Yang, squatting on the ground while the medic applied a poultice to his back. "What exactly does Argongza intend to do?" Chen Yang was sorting out the registers of military craftsmen in border camp. "That's up to my master. Why are you asking me?" "We've known each other a long time. Can't you give me a little hint?" After neatly compiling the registers, Chen Yang looked at Wu Ziyu, unruffled. "If it's a personal chat you're after, I'll drink and dine with you. If you want to discuss military affairs, I'll first have to address you as the battalion general. How am I supposed to answer when you mix personal affairs and official business?" Wu Ziyu pulled on his shirt. "Well, I'll level with you. Argongza wants to recover the occupied 3rd Sand Camp to the east. I don't think it's a good idea. It can't be done. The Libe Armored Cavalry in border camp right now is under my command. We are not frontline fighters. We're a support squadron that transports supplies between battlefields. We may be able to dance with the Liaoying tribe for a while, but if we have to face the Hanma tribe, sorry, but I'll take my men and retreat right away." Chen Yang nodded. Then forgive me for not seeing you out. Clicking his tongue, Wu Ziyu asked, impatient, How was that your answer? Chun Yang set aside the register of names. If you say those words to my master, he'll answer you just as I did. If you want to leave, then sure. Go. Listen, it's not because I'm afraid to fight the Hanma tribe, but we can't afford to fight a battle against them right now. Wu Ziyu explained. Why throw an egg against a rock? The battle steeds and military craftsmen from this camp are Li Bei's most valuable resources. What good will it do us to waste more time here with the Bianxia horsemen? If we send our people and supplies to the Northeast Provisions Trail now and ask for help, we'll have reinforcements from the Liuyang camps. It won't be too late at that point to come back and reclaim Third Sand at Border Camp. It won't be too late. Xiao Chuye lifted the hanging screen and ducked to enter the tent. He wiped his hands dry on the handkerchief as he said, How did you come to this conclusion? Enlighten me. The instant Xiao Chuye entered, Wu Ziyu felt the tent grow dimmer. The medic packed his case, bowed once to Xiao Chuye, and withdrew from the tent. Somewhat embarrassed, Wu Ziyu averted his gaze. Xiao Chuye tossed his handkerchief to Chun Yang and sat by the stove, where a pot of milk tea was keeping warm. It had been a long time since Xiao Chuye had last tasted it. Gutin came forward from a corner of the tent and poured a bowl for Xiao Chuye. Silence descended over the tent. Wu Ziyu felt a creeping unease. Even when he had made mistakes under Xiao Jiming's command, he hadn't experienced the same feeling of oppressiveness he did in Xiao Chuye's presence. Xiao Chuye took a mouthful of tea and asked Wu Ziyu, Any more fresh milk? Wu Ziyu shook his head hastily. No, just this one pot. It was specially sent from back home for everyone in border camp to satisfy their cravings. How about coarse tea? How could we not have something to perk ourselves up? Wu Ziyu replied. There's plenty of tea in the granary. If you like, I'll get someone to pack some for you. Xiao Chuye leaned back, propping his elbows behind him, and looked at Wu Ziyu. If you stand here all night trying to convince me, I'm still planning to leave before dawn tomorrow. You run at the first sign of an attack. Aren't you the Li Bei armored cavalry? This was the second time Wu Ziyu had heard Xiao Chuye say those words, and it made him fume. Yet just as he finally worked himself up to retort, Xiao Chuye continued. Gujin, go pack some. Seal it in a case and send someone to deliver it to Cizhou tomorrow morning. While you're at it, tell Lanzhou all is well. Wu Ziyu had no idea who this Lanzhou was. To him, it sounded like Xiao Chuye wasn't taking the war seriously. Instead, he was thinking of gifting tea. Unable to bear it, he blurted, Argongza. While we're talking about military affairs, I'm not your Argongza. I'm the Supreme Commander of the Imperial Army, Xiao Zi'an. I asked you if you're the Li Bei Armored Cavalry, and not once have you answered me with certainty. Li Bei doesn't have a dedicated supply squadron. There is only the one Li Bei Armored Cavalry. Your soldiers ride the same battle steeds and are equipped with the same long sabers as the men on the front lines. Xiao Chuye fixed his gaze on Wu Ziyu, finished his milk tea, and said with an edge of mockery, So, is this all the commanding general of Li Bei has to offer? Alrighty, everyone, that concludes the reading for today. Sorry, it's a bit short this morning. I'm not going to go into why, but I'm sorry. It's under an hour. But what I'll try to do, if I have the gall and the energy and the want and desire to do so, I'll record a few more chapters and give you an extra video this week. So, which would be tomorrow, Saturday, if you're on Patreon. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and talk about these chapters, which I don't have a lot to say, but I enjoyed them. I hope you all did as well. First off, I love that as soon as we get into chapter 29, Graveyard of Dreams, that we see the Imperial Army is excited for battle. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like battle like in real life scenarios. I wish we never had it, that we did not have to go to war and stuff like that. But I do love when looking at entertainment and stuff, and you can see that the soldiers are excited for the war, because it would be completely different if the people who were fighting were only fighting, because we have to, someone's got to defend the country, because if we don't, then what's going to happen? Who's going to take care of it? So I love that the Imperial Army is like, yes, we can finally let loose. We can kill these mother chuckers, unlike, the people from before. So feeling that all the way. And then I also love that Xiao Chuye is what he said to Wu Ziyu. Xiao Zi'an immediately started taking command while Wu Ziyu is being a little bitch baby. For anyone who has ever seen Scandal with Kerry Washington, she called one of the characters a little bitch baby. So that's what I'm calling Wu Ziyu. But yeah, he's just taking command, and he's like, are you even part of the Libe Armored Cavalry? Sorry, just running at the first sign of trouble? Okay, sure. So then, moving forward, I loved this little break. Did I keep saying I love? This little breakaway scene that we got from Daddy Xiao talking to Zuo Tianqiu, just about basically how Libe has gotten complacent with being victorious. They've won battle after battle after battle after war, and it's like now they're to a point where they're suffering defeat, and that's not a bad thing. It can be if they don't recover, but hopefully this is something that will get their, motivation back up. And, he's talking and he's saying, we need a wolf. Let me go back to it. He's like, we need someone that is unlike the rest of us, the polar opposite even. This person must be, not the scholarly, elegant kind that Jiming has made himself into. He's got to be avaricious and savage. He has to make the Libe Armored Cavalry ravenous. He must be a wolf that leads the hunt. And I was like, my note says, so Su'an then. Because the man, no matter how long he's been in Chudu, he is not a scholarly guy. Like, he did not put on a scholarly air. Could he? Absolutely. But I feel like there was always still an edge to it. Like, he stayed true to himself. But then even, in scenarios where he would be in court, the man would still be like, bruh, woof, woof. So I'm just like, Daddy Xiao, like, your son, he has returned. Like, he's almost there. You just see what he's doing, sweetie. Okay. The hunger is there in the Imperial Army. And the Imperial Army is going to they're going to spark that inside of the Libe Armored Cavalry. So we'll just see. Okay. But I'm super duper excited to just see him show his mettle, as they've said in here. I'm so excited. So then when we move to chapter 130, Jade Earring. First off, I love that Li Xiong and Ding Tao are playing together. And of course, Li Xiong, he's having his difficulties of missing Lei Jingjia and everything. That's totally understandable. But I love that he's being given some sense of freedom instead of being locked up in the jail, but being able to move around, being able to play a little bit. And I thought it was hilarious that Ding Tao was baiting him, So funny. But I have a problem. My problem is this jade earring that is in Lanzhou's ear, and the jade earring that apparently was in this child's ear that Lei Chongming liked to lift upside down. I'm sure y'all know where my brain is going, especially with how crazy Lei Chongming's death was, and we were getting insight into his mind about a child that he was thinking about, that he very clearly sexually violated, raped. So I'm just like drawing the parallels of him having looked so, like him wanting Shen Zichuan so bad because of that earring. He was thinking about that child specifically. He's already in the well, but can we just like pull him up in the bucket with the string and then let go of the string and let him go back down again? Because that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this man. Okay? And do it just a couple of times, Do it a couple of times. And we can specifically go ahead and use the well that was provided to us yesterday. Okay? It was specifically done by Suki, I believe. But anyway, as we go forward, Shang Zichuan calling Jigang Grandpa Ji. Oh my gosh. That was perfect. That was perfect. I know he's Grandpa Ji to Li Xiong and Ding Tao, right? So adorable. I also think it's really nice, again, that Jigang is wanting to teach them both something, just again, including Li Xiong into that. I'm really hoping that, he will find his place here, because you're not going back, sir. Sweetie, you're not. So then, moving forward, it's time to make a deal with Chajo. And the key is to make sure they get there first before the others do. Otherwise, Chajo won't have the money to make this deal. They won't make this deal. So there's pretty much all there is to understand on that front. And then, very smart guy, very smart cookie. I knew he was doing it intentionally, but of course, Shen Zichuan with Zhou Gui saying the one thing he had been waiting for, if people come and they're trying to fight us, basically, our Suzhou garrison troops, they ain't there yet, basically. And so Lanzhou was like, perfect. I was waiting for you to say this, because who could train them? The Imperial Army. We're already intertwined. You're like, there's no escaping. There is no escaping the Imperial Army being associated with Suzhou. You guys are one now. And so then when we go to the final chapter for today, a spider's web, like I said, yep, fully intertwined, just from that whole conversation that Zhou Gui and Kong Ling are having. So moving forward, Zhou Gui finally sees Lanzhou in a new light, sees what he's been planning probably since before he got to Zizhou, and doesn't mind handing over his position if Shen Zichuan can lead them to being restored to their former glory as Zizhou, which is saying a lot. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Fei Xiong. Fei Xiong and his plight of wanting to be with the Libe armored cavalry under Xiao Cian. Cian not wanting him. And so now he's like, okay, well, maybe I guess I have to go with second best. But Shen Zichuan knows that he really doesn't want to. He's just choosing this option because what better is there for him? Kind of sucky from both fronts, that he's not wanted, but also that he's like trying to settle. I don't know. It's just really funny. Hopefully things go well for him. I truly hope that he finds his ground somewhere, something. And he's got his 2 assignments. That is what it is. Those are very important. But I also thought it was quite interesting that Xiao Tianya was asking him to look out for Yao Wenyu. Because I've been thinking about Yao Wenyu this whole time as well, even though I didn't say anything. But as soon as we read the chapter Liang Yi, which he gave up his life, I was like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen with all people who were closest to him, being Kong Qiu and Yao Wenyu. I just didn't voice it, because I didn't see it as important to voice. But now that he's been brought back up, yes, I definitely want to know where he's at, what he's up to, what he's doing. Because even, a lot of those college students were disappointed in Yao Wenyu because Hai Liangyi had given him a wealth of knowledge, and yet he didn't want to be a court official. So I do wonder, okay, what is he going to do now that his teacher is gone? And then last but not least, we have Xiao Cian wants to take back the 3rd sand camp from enemy hands. But what did we say about Wu Ziyu? Being a little bitch baby. So he's like, I'll just take my man and go. And Chun Yang is like, okay, then bye. Do it. And I love that Cian comes in again. He's like, sir, are you even part of the Libe armored cavalry? Are you? Is this all you have to offer? Are you nothing else? Okay. All right, then. So I'm excited to see what happens next. I hope you all enjoyed these chapters today. Please let me, I don't know why I did that. Let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comments section. And let's do it up, okay? Let's have fun. Oh, the announcements. Right. I'm so sorry. So the first announcement is, for anyone who happened to miss it, we have officially finished Thrice Married to a Salted Fish, Volume 1, and we are on Volume 2. For Monday, March the 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be reviewing chapters 39 through 46. That is 7 chapters, and I have already read them last night, which is a shame because I want to keep reading. So I'm probably going to be a bad girl and read this entire novel over the weekend. I'm just going to be honest. And then I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do for our discussions so that I can go back to the previous chapters because I cannot stop reading now. Oh my gosh, I can't even say anything. So that's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2, which I had given first dibs to the head disciple tier and actually, I'll say this piece of information first. That way, once it's done, anyone who's not on Patreon, then you can stop listening now if you want. The break that I'm taking in March is officially going to be Tuesday, March 17th, which is my birthday, oddly enough, through March the 23rd. That's Monday of the following week. That's not to say there won't be any content if I'm able to do things the week before and get it uploaded, which I'm not too sure about. But if I am, I will do that. But if not, it'll be a clean week of no content, or you'll get content, but you won't get any interaction from me. We won't be doing the live sessions to discuss any books. And I also just won't be commenting on any of you guys' comments on YouTube or Patreon. So now for my Patreoners, I had actually sent out a little poll, if you will, and survey, whatever you want to call it, first to my head disciple tier and my peak lord tier. But now after I've gotten a lot of those votes and collected them, I'm adding on the cultivator in training. So for anyone who has not taken this, the link is in the description. I want you guys to go ahead and let me know between Thrice Married to a Salted Fish and The Wife Comes First. If I had to read one of those, record one of those, which one would you prefer? And please do not leave it in the comment section. Okay, I want you to put it on the form so that I can have the percentage. I don't want to do the calculations myself. I want the percentage to be showing on the form. And then the next question is asking you guys, just out of any danmei, whether officially released or it's a fan translation, let me know what one danmei you would like for me to read. And all of these, from Salted Fish or Wife Comes First and whatever other danmei, are being considered for exclusive Patreon material, okay? So if you're on YouTube and you're still listening for some reason, this is just for Patreon. So if I read The Wife Comes First or Salted Fish, which is currently winning, the poll closes on on the 1st of March. It's all going to be on Patreon only. Cannot stress that enough. Patreon only. Anyway, please also be sure to read the information up top before taking the survey. There are going to be certain genres and certain books or authors that I'm not going to be reading, and I need you to know what those are so you don't submit that for the danmei read. There are also certain things that we've already read and that are already scheduled. So just in case, I don't want you to be like, hey, can you read How to Survive as a Villain? Or can you read Kaleidoscope of Death? Because that's already coming. So that's the last announcement that I have. I'm really excited to see what you guys pick because I'm loving both Salted Fish. And it's been a minute, of course, now for The Wife Comes First, but I absolutely adored book number 1 after I got over the first 6 chapters. And so, of course, the goal is to pick between one of those and start reading them. That's not to say I can't do both at some point, but I just want to see which one is going to take precedence in you guys' mind. So anyway, I hope you all have a beautiful day and or night. And well, einimen.